Okay, this video is going to have some coding questions to practice with. Here is an example of a coding question. So have a read of this. A school wants a program to ensure that a teacher enters a valid test score for their students. A valid score must be between 0 and 100 inclusive. Write an algorithm that asks the user to input a test score. Repeatedly ask for a score if the input is invalid, less than 0, greater than 100. Output the message score accepted once a valid value is entered. So try to code this yourself. Pause the video here and I will explain it, how to answer it now. First thing, we need to ask the user to input a test score. So we're going to have a variable on the left. Variables always are on the left, equals, and because it's number based, we're going to make sure we cast it and make sure it's an int. Enter score. If we don't make an int, we can't do any mathematical calculations, but as a whole number, it's a score, we should always use int. Now here it says line to repeatedly ask for the score. Now it doesn't tell us to do it a certain amount of time, it says repeatedly. So this could be 1,000,000 times, 1,000 times, 10 times, or 2 times, depends on how many times the input is invalid. So they need to enter a number that is not less than 100 or not greater than 100. Okay, so what we could do is we need to use a while loop for this because we don't know how many times a person will enter invalid score. Score is less than 0 or score is greater than 100. Remember, we need to indent now because it is now going to be inside the while loop. Score equals int input invalid, try again. So let's test this out, okay, and see what happens. Very common mistakes is we forgot 2 open brackets, we didn't put 2 closing brackets. Now it's asking for us a number, so if we do 102, it says invalid, try again. Let's do -1, invalid, try again. 50, that is between 0 and 100, it allows us to continue. But if you look here, output the message score accepted once a valid score has been entered. Now we need to make sure this is not indented, it is outside the while loop, so we dedent it to the left and we print out print score accepted. So for a question like this, we need to make sure we follow all the bullet points. So now if we do 102 -5, invalid, try again, and this time we're going to put 55, which is a valid number, it says score accepted. Now the way the marks will be allocated here, so we ask for an input, 1 mark. Correct condition, so we've done a score is less than 100 and less than 0 and greater than 100, inclusive, meaning it's included the 0 and included the 100. So when you run it, 0 should be accepted. Someone can achieve a 0, or 100% in the test, and that is also accepted. So inclusive means the numbers there as well. 1 mark for using the while loop, so that's 3 marks achieved. 1 mark for reprompting when it's invalid, and 1 mark for a successful message at the bottom. So that is 1 question done. Hopefully you were able to code this quite easily. Fairly straightforward question. Okay, so let's look at another question. I'm just going to clear this, delete. Read this question. A 1D array named temp data stores 7 daily temperatures for a week. Write an algorithm that iterates through the temp data array. calculates the total of all temperatures in the array, calculates and outputs the average temperature for the week. Okay, pause here. Can you code this solution? And I will demonstrate now. Okay, so first thing, it says iterate through the temp data array. We're not given the array. We just need to write the code to iterate through it. Calculate the total is the key point here. So if we're going to be having a running total, we should always initialize this with total equals 0. That creates a variable that we can use later on to iterate through the array. So now we know there's 7 days. Unlike the previous question where we didn't know how many attempts, this we know there's only 7 items in the array. So we're going to have to go through each item. So we know how many there is. So we're going to have to use a for loop. So for x in range, and we could just put 7 here. And that will give us 7 loops. And now we want to add to the total what is in location 0 for that array. So if we did total equals total plus, and what is the array called? Temp data square bracket. Now, what is the location of the first item? We know arrays index always starts at 0. And if we look at here, we don't need to write 0. We can write x, because x will always start from 0 and it will loop through until it hits 7. So 0 to 6, 0 to 6, all 7 days. And then at the end of it, it says calculate the output of the calculates and outputs the average temperature for the week. So how do we work out the average? So if we create a new variable average, we know we've added everything in total here. So we do total divided by 7. We know the 7 temperatures. That will work out the average. And last thing, outputs. How do we output the average now? Print average. And that will give you the full code. This code will not work because we don't have the array. It just tells us there's an array, but we can make one in a minute. So the array doesn't exist. For your exam, you won't need to write the array, but you can do but it's unnecessary. You will not get any marks for writing the array. Temp data, let's make something up, equals 15, 10, 10, 10, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 data. Now if you run it, the average temperature for all of these days was 12. So again, I reiterate, this might be given in the paper from a previous question. You don't need to write this down for your answer, but you get 1 mark for initializing the loop. So we've created a loop, for loop. Yeah, so 1 mark. And we know there's 7 days, so we write 7. That will get you the 1 marks. Or 0 to 6. You could have done in range 0, 6. That would also give you the marks. That should work as well. We've removed temp data. It gives you the same 7. So it should be 0, 7, because in Python it stops before it hits the 7. So that will give you the same exact value. There, it's a shortcut, just write 7. And then we've got 1 mark for indexing 0 here. So we put in the correct index. That will be 1 mark. 1 mark for calculating the total. Total equals each location. And then 1 mark for working out the average, and 1 mark for printing the average. Okay, let's go to another question. Okay, let's clear this out. Delete this. A new security policy requires all passwords to be at least 8 characters long and must begin with the letter P. Write an algorithm that takes a password input from the user, checks the password meets both length and starting character requirements, outputs access granted if it meets the criteria, otherwise outputs access denied. Let's do this. Okay, first you have a go. So have a go trying to code it yourself, and then I will show you how to do it now. Okay, so first thing, we need to enter a password. So let's do password equals input. The default variable type in Python is string. So we don't need to write string if we don't need to. We can do if we wanted to. Let's test that out. Enter password. So password 1 2 3 4 5. It works. Okay. Check if password is now we need to check if the password it meets both length and starting criteria. So it must be at least 8 characters long. So if we're checking something like this, we need to use an if statement. If len password is greater than or equal to 8, and the next one is must begin with letter P. So the first letter. So how do we check the first letter? And password location 0, similar to index. Double equals, now we're doing comparison, equals capital P. Then we print access granted, else print access denied. So let's just have a look at that. So we've done len, which is the function for checking the length of a word, and this is a string, so it will check the length, and is greater than or equal to 8. And so now both need to be true. Password first letter using the square bracket, 0 is located is capital P, access granted, else access denied. Remember indentation. Here again, 1 mark for putting the input in, 1 mark for doing an if statement, 1 mark for putting both criteria in, printing success, and printing the denied. Okay, so that question done. Let's look at the next question. All right, so let's start and clear my workspace here. Actually, sorry, let's step back a bit. I never even did I test this. I did not test this code at all. So if I did pass, access denied, that's too short. If I did password, that's 8 characters long, begins with 8 characters, access granted. Let's do 8 characters, but not a capital P. Watermelon, access denied. And if I did P 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, access granted. So it is checking capital P, and it is also checking that the length is 8 characters long. That meets that criteria. Okay, next question. Sorry, let's clear the criteria now and delete this. A retail system needs a modular way to calculate the final price of items, including 20% sales tax. Write a function named calcTotal that takes the price of an item as a parameter, calculates the total cost by adding 20% to the price, and returns a value. Remember, it's a function, should always return a value. A procedure does not return a value. Have a go at coding this, and I will show you how to do this now. Okay, for this one, we need to write a function. Okay, in Python, we write def for defining a function, and it gives us the name here, calculate total. So we need to match that, calc, capital T, total. And if we carry on reading, so we can close it there with the brackets and a semicolon. But then it tells us takes the price of an item as a parameter. So here we need to take the price as a parameter. The parameters go in the brackets of the function. Unlike OCR exam reference language, a function and a procedure both get defined using def, whereas in OCR reference language, a function you write function, procedure you write procedure instead of def. Okay, then it says calculates the total cost by adding 20% to the price. So we need a new variable called total. Remember, this needs to be indented, so it's part of this function. Total equals the price, and we want to add 20%, so we do times 1.2, and then it says returns the value final total, and then we just need to return the total. Just like that, and that will cover each of the marks. 5-mark question. We've got we've defined a function, that's 1 mark. We've included a parameter, so define the function with the correct variable name, correct function name, and we've got calculation total time price times 1.2 because it says add 20%, and we've returned the total, and we've not used any other inputs, etc. We've used the correct variable. That will give us all 5 marks. Okay, so the last question for this video, we're going to be reading this question first, and I will pause it, or you can pause it and answer yourself. Okay, so a 2D array named student grades. Do we need to? Okay, here's the next question. A 2D array named student grades stores data in the format student ID grade. There are 30 rows in the array. Write an algorithm that asks the user for the student ID to search for. Use a loop search through the student grades array. If the ID is found, output the corresponding grade and stop searching. If the loop finishes and the ID is not found, output student not found. Okay, have a go at this code and pause it now. Okay, so first I'm going to clear the area. So asks for the student ID to search for. So we're going to have a input. So I want to use the word search equals input. What we're searching for is going to say enter ID. So we're entering the ID that we want to search for. Use a loop to search through the student array. So we're going to need a for loop for I in range. We can look through the whole array by doing len array. The name of the array is student grades, or capital G, student grades. Yeah, so this will give us how many items are in the student grades. If there's 30, we could just write 30, but this is more cleaner. It gives us how many items in the array. And then let's say if student grades equals location. So look here, it says student ID and then grade. So if we look, we want to look for the location 0 here. What you want to do is I, which would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And here we put 0. Equals search, the variable what we typed in before. Got a bit of typo there, so that should be great. And if we look at the question, it says it's a 2D array. So we know this is 0, 0, and this is 0, 1. So what we want to be looking at is the whole of this will be location 1, and this should be 1, 0, and the next student will be 1, 1, etc., etc. It'll make sense a bit later on. Let's do, if the student does match here in this location, we can print student grades. We're going to print out the get grades. So we're going to print out the grade this time. So instead of, this was location 0 was the student ID. Now we're going to print out the grade for that student. So put 1. And then we need to tell the computer or the algorithm that we found it. Okay, so up here, well, let's say found equals false. And here we write, we found it, so we're going to change found equals true. So now it's true. And then right then outside the for loop, if we search through the whole list and we never found student ID, we want to change it to found if doing found equals false. We can say print ID does not exist. Oh no, it needs to say student not found, word for word like that. That will give us the full marks. That is all we need. Now, there's no way of testing this unless we have an actual array with data in there. Oh, I missed the close bracket here as well. So let's press play. And the main thing is we want to be able to enter our ID. Let's say student ID S001. And it should print out the grade of that student, but we don't have an array. So let's make a simple array. Let's make, just for testing purposes, you don't need to write this in the exam, but the questions then asks you to make an array, but we're going to be doing this just to test it. So we're going to write, let's do student grades. And then we're going to have a square bracket equals square bracket. And remember, for a 2D array, we need a double square bracket because we're going to put each grade inside, each item inside its own bracket. So we'll do S001 grade A. That's location. This whole item is location 0. And then this is location 1, 0. And then this is location 1. And we can do a double close bracket. Let's run it now. And we're looking for S001. It says student grade is not defined in line 1, line 5. Always check your spelling. I've missed the T there. Student S001. It says the grade was A. Now, how do we add another student? We add another double bracket. S002, comma, and this student's, let's say they got a C grade. and then we end it with double close bracket, because we've got two open, one here that close there. Let's have a look what I've done here. You need to put a comma in the middle, so it separates them. Oh, that's a full stop, comma. Let's try S002, and this student got a C. Now, this is a double 2D array where there's two fields, location 0, location 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. Yeah. So if we run it again and try to do one that doesn't exist, it says student not found. Okay, this is doing a 2D array, and this is how we search for a 2D array to find a grade. This is one of the harder questions to do, a 2D array. Very difficult questions, but if you can figure this out, I think you won't have any problems with any of the exam questions. That's the last task for this video.